I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media at Gillette Stadium as we get you ready for Patriots versus Jets with our Pats Daily pregame show. We are powered by Prize Picks and Game Time. We will talk about both of them later, but we have a lot to get to today, Taylor. We'll do a quick hitter, 20 minutes-ish right here talking about this game, and we just got our inactives report, so let's react to those immediately. The Patriots inactives ahead of today's game. We have Jalen Polk, Layden Robinson, Kyle Duggar, Daniel Quale, Joe Milton, and Josh Uche. Joshua Uche, a healthy scratch as he currently sits in trade discussions. That's according to multiple reports. Mike Reese, I believe, had that this morning. Karen Garigian as well. So Jalen Polk out with the concussion. Layden Robinson dealing with injury. Same with Kyle Duggar and Aquale. And then Joe Milton is your emergency third quarterback today. So Taylor, before we get into this game, before we get into the Jets inactives, quick thoughts on what we're looking at with the Patriots here and who they will not have today against New York.
Yeah, so Kyle Duggar and Daniel Aquale are really big losses, specifically for the run defense, which, as we know, has really struggled over the past few weeks. No Kyle Duggar likely means that we're going to have to see younger guys step up. Marte Mapu has been a starter. We may have to see him close to the line of scrimmage, which isn't something I love, to be honest. Going to see more of Jalen Hawkins likely going to be the starter besides Marte Mapu. And then Del Pettis is probably going to be their third safety. As we know, those three safety packages are huge for the Patriots. And then on the defensive line, Daniel Aquale is having one of the best seasons, if not the best, starts to a season in his career, but obviously a much bigger workload than he's used to. Right. Clearly paying the price for that. Now, I'm going to expect to see more of Jeremiah Farms, who was a scratch last week for the Patriots. We saw more of Jaquelin Roy, more as a nose tackle, which allowed Devon Gottschall to play more of that defensive end and defensive tackle, the way we've seen really Daniel Aquale. And Eric Johnson, who really struggled early on last week against the Jaguars, but did start to rebound later on in the game. But those two guys not being out there is going to be really tough. And Joshua Uche, I tweeted about this earlier today. He's had fewer than 20 defensive snaps in each of the past few games and a total of 0 pressures. Now, some of that's how he's been used with the scheme. He's dropping into coverage a little bit. He's also sometimes just trying to contain rather than actually get after the passer. But the Patriots' pass rush has really not been there the past few weeks. Some of that has to do with you're playing C.J. Stroud, you're playing Trevor Lawrence, guys who don't really hold on to the football. That's been part of it. But also now with no Uche, your only significant pass rusher is Keion White. So make sure you keep him inside. Really task your edge guys with containing to make sure that Aaron Rodgers doesn't get out of the pocket like we saw the last time they faced the Jets. And maybe we need more from Dietrich Wise as well. His discipline has not been great consistently, so I want to make sure that he is someone who's following his assignments, making sure that Aaron Rodgers doesn't get out of that pocket. Also wonder how much we'll see of O'Shawn Mathis. He's been elevated for the third time. Hasn't had a huge role, but with Anthony Jennings also a bit banged up, he could see a little bit more snaps than he's seen in previous weeks.
Drake Maye getting ready for his third start in the NFL, and he'll do so with a loaded wide receiver room because they have 6 wide receivers active today, a room that has been in headlines in the news. Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne speaking out this week. Javon Baker, according to Mike Reese, he essentially missed curfew last week in London, said he had a couple hiccups, was the phrasing from Reese about their schedule over in London last week. But he does play today, so we have Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, KJ Osborne, Tyquan Thornton back in the lineup, as well as Javon Baker. So what do you make of these 6 guys going out there this week? They only had 4 active last week. Kayshon Boutte, obviously, coming into his own. He catches another deep ball from Drake Maye. How do you see the offense shaping up this week against this Jets defense? Because also looping in the Jets inactives, if you give me 2 seconds here.
I know they're going to be missing both their starting safeties, so that's pretty tough for them.
Ashton Davis as well as Tony Adams out for them. Sauce Gardner not having a great year, I would say, relative to what he's done in the past. Michael Carter banged up, but he is playing as well. So how do you mix that in? What do you see the Patriots going up against with that Jets defense?
Yeah, so first of all, last week we actually saw a glimpse of what the offense would look like without Jalen Polk, who's been the Patriots' primary X-receiver for the past few weeks. Obviously, he's out with a concussion. Really what we saw was Kayshon Boutte and Kendrick Bourne as the main outside receivers. Now, typically the starting receivers in 2 receiver sets have been Kayshon Boutte at X, Kendrick Bourne at Z. We saw that continue in 3 receiver sets last week, which we really hadn't seen before then with KJ Osborne in the slot. Obviously, that's where Demario Douglas would typically line up. So I think that's where you're going to see as the primary grouping for these receivers. But Tyquan Thornton and KJ Osborne, 2 guys who've been involved in trade talks, as we know, especially KJ Osborne, who, as we know, kind of voiced not directly saying that he wanted to get traded, but, I am where my feet are. I'm here now, all that
He
kind
didn't
of
deny
talk.
the fact that he could be on the trade block, and he also mentioned, too, sorry to cut you off, but
No,
he also
no.
mentioned that he's a guy who, he came here, he wanted to be a part of it, he wanted to be a part of the culture, but he's also an older veteran on a team that is 1-6 and trying to play a bunch of their young guys right now. So he's in kind of a weird spot. He said that's been difficult for him so far.
And with Kendrick Bourne back, now he's really the veteran in the room, the guy who's been around, gives you some of that solidarity. So KJ Osborne feels a bit redundant, and he hasn't really done much this season to warrant you really wanting to get him playing time. So maybe we see those two guys mixed in to get them some production, maybe something to help their trade value. Tyquan Thornton's a guy I mentioned a couple weeks ago when he was a healthy scratch. I actually really wanted to see him with Drake Maye because he's never had a quarterback in the NFL who could really put air under the ball and let him run under it and use his speed to his advantage. So I'm going to be curious to see how that works out. Maybe we see a little bit more of Tyquan rotating a little bit, maybe with Kayshawn in that X role. I'm going to be curious to see how that works out. I hope we see some Javon Baker, but honestly, I'd probably expect his role to be more on special teams, if anything, than really in the wide receiver group.
I think so, too. Last week, like I said, they rolled with 4 wide receivers. The last time they played with 5 wide receivers, Tyquan Thornton was active but only played 1 snap, and Baker was obviously a scratch. Now they go with 6. I don't expect to see a ton of Thornton or Baker, frankly. We'll see how those first 4 kind of rotate through, depending on KJ Osborne, but I think he's going to want to go out there. They're going to want to get him out there, have him showcase some solid film so that they can potentially dangle him in trade talks as that comes about. We'll continue on with Patriots versus Jets, the 2 and 5 Jets versus the 1 and 6 Patriots today, right behind us at Gillette Stadium. But first, a quick word from Prize Picks. I'll do it. I didn't mean to say a quick word, but Prize Picks, head over there. We have... We didn't do our Pat's Daily lineup, Taylor, but I tweeted one this morning, and I'm going with Drake Maye to have more than 1.5 touchdown passes. He's had 2 in each of the last 2 weeks. And I'm going with Breece Hall to have more than 76.5 rushing yards. I think this Patriot, the Patriots.
I hope you're wrong. But you're on the right track, I think.
No, the run defense has been great. Now Quale's
Yeah.
out. Kyle Duggar obviously out, someone who can play in the box. They're going to have to rely a lot on guys like Marte Mapu and things like that to stop that run defense, and I don't think it's going to be successful. Breece Hall has kind of had an up-and-down season, but I do think that he can get more than 76.5. And like I said, Drake Maye, 5 total touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. I think he puts more than 1.5 touchdowns in. So head over to Prize Picks. Use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS for $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. We are also powered by Game Time. And right now, you can get into Gillette Stadium for as little as $59 on the Game Time app. So head over there. Best seats in the house here in Foxboro. Plenty still. We're not filling up just yet over here, but I do think that we will potentially. It's a beautiful fall day, so I think this place will fill up, and it's Drake Maye's 3rd start. So get in here if you can, if you're in the area. You can use code CLNS. You get $20 off your first purchase with the Game Time app. Terms apply. Again, that's code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Low price, $59 right now. What time is it, Taylor?
Game time.
It is game time, and it's also time to quickly react to the rest of these inactives. So let's go through what the Jets are dealing with today. They will be without. We already mentioned those two.
I know the 2 ones, the big ones on offense that really stand out to me most are Allen Lazard and Elijah Vera Tucker. Now, like I mentioned, you want Keon White more on the inside to get out to the passer. That's where he's at his best. He gave John Simpson nightmares last time these teams faced off. Now without Elijah Vera Tucker, that's another weak spot on the interior that Keon may be able to exploit. And no Allen Lazard, honestly, I did not feel good about this matchup for the Patriots receiver core because even if you have Christian Gonzalez, I think he's going to be more on the boundary than he really is going to be shadowing anybody unless Devontae Adams mainly ends up getting out of hand. But I like whoever Christian Gonzalez goes up against. But John Jones, he's going to have a tough matchup whoever he's up against. But then Marcus Jones and Allen Lazard, I did not like that because we've seen in the past those smaller Patriots corners have had trouble getting him down and contesting some of the 50-50 ball opportunities they've had when they match up with him in the past. So I think without him, maybe they focus more on Malachi Corley. I think that's a much better matchup for Marcus Jones in the slot. Those 2 injuries really do give the Patriots a bit more of an edge than they maybe had coming into this game.
Yeah, the big story this week around Foxborough anyway, and it was a self-inflicted story, it's the fact that this team is soft. Gerard Mayo said it to them after last week's game. He said it to us after the game as well, and that has started this entire sort of storm around Foxborough. So I want to get into the 3 things that we mentioned that we broke down this week. We won't really do the kicking game, but running the football and stopping the run. But before we do that, I do want to talk about the offensive line for the Patriots, Taylor, because Layden Robinson obviously out. Vidarian Lowe is back. He will start at left tackle. It's going to look like, I would say, him, Michael Jordan, and then Ben Brown at center. But the right side, still a bit of a question mark. Sidy Sow is healthy. Mike Onwenu is obviously healthy. And then you also have DeMontre Jacobs, who has played tackle on the left side and the right side for the Patriots over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Now, you mentioned that you would like to see Sidy Sow at right guard and Mike Onwenu stay at tackle. But there's also the idea that you put Onwenu in at guard, you leave Jacobs on the right side. If they do that, that is not the they've had 7 offensive line combinations in the last 7 weeks. If they do keep Onwenu inside and Jacobs on the outside, they actually started that 2 weeks ago against the Texans, so a little bit of continuity there. But why do you think they should go with an 8 weeks and actually start Sidy Sow at right guard?
Well, the biggest thing is more that I think it should be that. I would be disappointed if Sidy Sow isn't a starter over DeMontre Jacobs because, as we all know, Mike Onwenu is at his best when he's at right guard. But at the same time, if you want to talk about chemistry, Sidy Sow and Mike Onwenu spent almost half of an entire season together last year. And not only that, but Sidy Sow is a 4th-round pick. DeMontre Jacobs is really more of a developmental backup. Now, he's filled in admirably, but on paper, you'd like the guy who was a starter for you last season, who you drafted with a pretty significant draft capital in Sidy Sow to be the guy in the lineup. So if he isn't, and I think that really the team probably is leaning more towards Mike Onwenu back at right guard and then DeMontre Jacobs at right tackle, I just think, again, I think it's disappointing because as much as DeMontre Jacobs has done his best, he still struggled, and Sidy Sow has as well. So if that doesn't happen and Sidy isn't in the lineup, I would think that's more of a reflection on what he's putting on tape in practice because it doesn't make sense. We've mentioned it's kind of odd that it seems like they only put him in when they really have to, even though during the summer, he was one of the few guys they didn't try to move around until he got injured. So, again, I understand Mike Onwenu best at right guard, and there is some level of continuity, I guess, with him and DeMontre Jacobs, but not enough that I would think that's enough to warrant putting him in. So I guess just Sidy Sow, kind of an odd sophomore season for him, and one of the outliers when it comes to players who are kind of regressing, because Mike Onwenu's been up and down, but he's also moved around, and he hasn't allowed a sack on his own at right tackle. That's notable. And we've also seen Vidarian Lowe and Michael Jordan exceed expectations over on the left side, so really odd situation with the second-year guard.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there with the offensive line, but Drake Maye said it. Patriots, a soft football team right now. We can't run the football, we can't stop the run, and we can't cover kicks. So we'll leave the kicking game out of it. I feel like that, not that that was an anomaly because it was a mistake on the punt team's part, but those don't happen all the time. I think they'll improve that. Jeremy Springer has shown that he can bounce back with special teams performances, and they have Brendan Schooler back.
No more punts down the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
No more punts down the middle.
Yeah, don't punt the ball down the middle. Drake Maye and Bill Belichick actually both mentioned that was a mistake, whether it was by Jeremy Springer on the call or Bryce Behringer on the punt. We haven't got to the bottom of that. But the two big things, running the football, stopping the run. How do the Patriots run the football today effectively? Because it seems like they started the season hot, 5-6 weeks. They were great on the ground. Then Drake Maye comes in. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson gets hurt. Doesn't play 2 weeks ago. Is banged up last week. How do they improve in their run game today against the Jets?
It's going to come down to offensive line chemistry and execution. Because as we've talked about kind of ad nauseum this week, the Patriots the past 2 weeks are the only team in the NFL allowing or that's creating negative yards before contact. And that's really hurt Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. Now, Mondre, he was second in the NFL in missed tackles forced on runs from weeks 1 to week 5. Obviously missed week 6, and then in week 7 he's getting hit in the backfield, couldn't really get anything going. The team acknowledged that as well. So at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the offensive line creating some holes to get these guys going because they can't do it all by themselves.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit too with them stopping the run. Obviously, Daniel Quale will not play today. Kyle Duggar will not play. So a big challenge against Braylon Allen and Breece Hall in that backfield, and obviously Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, we've talked about it. We talked about it before the Week 3 game against the Jets, where Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he's had an up-and-down season, but when he's hot, when he's ready, when he's playing football, he is still one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. So what do you expect from Aaron Rodgers today? What do you think? How do you think the Patriots can stop him with their defensive backfield? And do you think that, if they don't stop the run, how does Rodgers kind of complement that, and where do they go with that?
I think at the end of the day, you got to keep him in the pocket. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. That's where he killed you most of the time the last time these guys played. I think the strategy now is just make sure the edges are solid. You don't necessarily need to get that edge rush. Just make sure that Keon White can do his job inside because, again, he's one of your only guys who does get that consistent rush. Once again, Dietrich-wise, make sure you stay on your P's and Q's. And from there, I think what Rodgers is going to try to do is get Devontae Adams involved early and often, try to get that chemistry going because we know they had a pretty quiet reunion last week. I think that's what it's going to come down to. And whether that's Christian Gonzalez covering Adams, whether that's Jonathan Jones, you got to be competitive and not just let him go off and have a great day.
Yep, a lot of question marks, a lot of self-inflicted wounds with this Patriots team right now. Drake Maye calls his team soft. We'll see if they can play tougher football today at Gillette Stadium. It's the 2-5 New York Jets here to take on the 1-6 Patriots. It's Jets week. It's important. Even when these teams are at the bottom of the barrel in the AFC East, it still feels like an important game, and it will be. So we'll be here at Gillette Stadium for the entire game. Make sure you keep it on Patriots Press Pass. We'll have a post-game show as well. We'll have written content on CLNSmedia.com. We'll have photos, videos, all over social, so keep it with us there, and we'll be back after the game to react to this one, see if the Patriots can get their second win this season. For Taylor Kyles, I'm Mike Kadlick. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you after the game. Thanks for tuning in.